Welcome to this class that is a 3-week class. Each week we'll have a 1-hour class. This is an acrylic painting class, and our first task will be to initiate a painting of a mug. So those who were in the last session, we painted a bird, a red bird, and with the red bird we included a lot of the green, and this had us use 2 complementary colors, the red, which is the primary color, and its opposite in complement is the green, and the green is a secondary color. So on the color wheel, the yellow, the red, and the blue are the primary colors, and all the opposite from the primaries, so that would be the green, the orange, and the purple, those are the secondary colors. And all the other ones that are in this little shape like a droplet, these are tertiary colors, and the tertiary colors are always made of a primary and a secondary color. So the mix of the two will give the tertiary. So we're not going to spend too much time talking about the color wheel, except to say that today we're going to use the blue with its complementary, which is the orange. And with these 2 colors and maybe a little bit of white, we'll be able to create a masterpiece. All right. So the first thing that I want to do is I want to show you a short video that I did. It's a time lapse, so it's going to run only for like 20 seconds. And also I want to show you where to find the recordings for the class, because now I'm posting them on YouTube, but I've created a web page on my website where you can find the videos. So I'm going to share my screen and show you my website. So when you land on the main page on my website, if you go to art classes, I'm just going to make this a little bit bigger just to make sure that you can see. So if you go to art classes, the submenu opens with a whole slew of other items on the submenu, and the one that is the second from last, class recordings, when you click on this one, then you land on a page with all of the class recordings. So this afternoon, I did the same class, the mug in orange and blue, except on a Tuesday afternoon, it's a class for watercolor and acrylic as well. So there's a recording there. This is where you can find them. Now, to the more fun stuff. So I did a little recording of painting the mug. So as you can see, I started with a white canvas, and I will invite you to do the same. If you really are not comfortable to start with a white canvas, then you can do a drawing of the mug and then trace it onto your canvas before you paint it. But I'm going to run this, I'm going to let it run, and it runs pretty fast. So while you are, while you're still very alert, you can watch this. So I only used the orange and the blue, and in some areas I mixed the orange and the blue to make other colors. And I also used a little bit of white in certain areas. I apologize for this glare that appears, but voila, it's all done. So now that you have seen all the steps, now you're ready to do it, right? I knew I would make you talk, Leslie. But we'll just watch it one more time, and this time I'll I'll interrupt. But as you can see here at this step, when I started my drawing, well, I started with a certain, you know, a certain drawing, and then as I was progressing, immediately I figured that it was incorrect. So I just redrew it. And it's okay to do that with acrylic. You'll be able to correct it. So I'm going to go here and let it run a little bit more. So the first step, you know, once I have drawn the mug, then I colored the whole thing with the same yellow, same orange. And here in this section, I put a little bit of blue in my orange, so that's why it's a little brownish. Then I add the handle. Once I've done all of this, then I cover the background with the blue. So this background with the blue is a very thin background. And when doing the background, make sure that you go all the way to the edge of the mug. Even if you go a little bit on the mug, it's better to do that than to leave a white space between your background and your mug. Next step is to do this bottom part. The bottom part is a lighter gray. To make this gray, the very first layer that I did there, I put a little bit of blue. I use a little bit of blue and a teeny little bit of orange. And then I add a lot of water to make it very thin. I bet Michelle will love that. Right, Michelle? Yay. Okay. Do you guys see some kind of like flickering, or it's good? Are you good? Okay. All right, so here you can see it's becoming a little darker, because what I did is in my orange, I put a little bit of blue, and if I want it to be even darker, then I put even more blue in my orange. Now I'm repainting the background a little bit with a little bit more thicker paint, and at the same time I put a little orange in my blue, not too much, so that it's not pure blue. I'm also including here the shadow behind the mug. And now I've used, oops, sorry. But over here now I've used a little bit of white in my blue with a bit of orange to create this beautiful gray. And upside down, sometimes it's easier to paint upside down. Now, so here I've added a lot of white to my color, but not so much in this area. Now, from where I was, I could see this pattern in the mug, so that's why I included these patterns in the mug. And see, now I've repainted this edge with a lot more white in my orange to have the lip. And these steps at the end there is just to refine it a little bit more. So voila, this is the mug. So what I suggest that we do, I will do a demonstration, and you can paint at the same time as me. You can paint your own thing, or what I suggest you do, take a moment, take 2 minutes, go to your kitchen and get yourself a mug. All right, so the drawing is over here. Basically, what we want to do is we want to draw 2 sides and a little smile at the bottom with a smile at the top and a frown on top. And before I do that, I'm going to mix my orange. I'm going to show you. I'll mix my orange. So a good amount of yellow. This is my primary yellow. So you guys have all been taking my previous class. I'm not going to talk too much about these colors. It's the same colors as before. Primary yellow, alizarin crimson, ultramarine blue, and the white is titanium white. The same colors as before. So with a good amount of yellow, I start by adding a little bit of red, not too much. I want to make sure that it doesn't get too orange too quickly. So that's a pretty good orange. But make sure that I have the right color. I have this little test. This is a little just a little canvas actually. And I like to test my color and see if it's a good orange. This seems to be pretty good. It's a little bit too yellowy, I think. I'm going to add just a little bit of red on it. So instead of using a canvas like this, you can just use a strip of acrylic paper if you have some, or a strip of canvas if you have some. I've added a little bit of red, and I'm going to test it again. To do so, first I clean my brush completely. Now I'm going to test it again. And now it's a little bit more orange than before. I think this is a little bit better. Yes. Okay. Now I have my orange and I have my blue. I'm ready to go. I have my white right there. I'm ready to go. So I'm going to put this like this. And we want to do this shape. So maybe you've already started actually, and that's fine. The first step is to use a very watery orange. This is what I do. So I've added in a little portion of my orange, I've added a lot of water just by dipping my brush in the water like this. And with this, I'm going to draw my mug. So drawing the mug is in the middle in this case. It's okay because we have on the one side we have the handle and on the other side we have the shadow. So that's going to counterbalance. So you should try to draw the mug that you went to get from your kitchen. So the two sides, now the smile at the bottom. Maybe it should go a little lower. Yes, this is good. And then there is another smile here. This is not quite as deep as the one at the bottom. Yes, and then a frown. So the frown, I like to start from the center and just go down like this. Frown to the other side. Oops, no, I need to raise it a little bit. So it's pretty rough, but it's very, very, very thin. This helps because if I want to change it, then I could. When it's very thin, it's very easy to change it or adjust it. So now's the time to look at it and see, well, do I want to make it bigger? Do I want to make it smaller? Do I want to make it a little higher, a little lower? Now's the time to make those decisions before we go into it. Well, I kind of like the one that I have. And so at this time, I'm going to paint with my orange. So I load up my brush with a lot of paint, and I'm going to paint the mug with all this paint. If I run out, I get more. So this part is probably one that Michelle likes because it's painting with a lot of paint. And from time to time, I like to wet my brush, but not too much. And right now I'm painting the whole thing with the same color from side to side. There you go. once this is done, and once this is done, then I also want to paint this portion, but I know that in this area, as you can see there's some darkness because the light comes from the right. And so this area of the mug will be lighter. This area of the mug will be darker. And as a result, this section makes it that it casts a shadow inside. So what I do is to a little bit of my orange that I made. So I'm going to take a little bit of my orange and I'm going to mix some blue to this orange. It creates some kind of a green color like this. Some kind of a green. And I'm going to take this to paint this section here. I'm going to save a little bit of the lighter in between, like so. So this is my my shadowy area. And I'm following this. You guys should be following the mug that you have. All right, now I'm going to clean my brush completely because on this side I want the orange. I don't want this this toned down greenish color. So I want to put the orange to complete this circle here. And it's okay if they mix together because there isn't really a very sharp line in between the two. There we go. So now we've painted this and I ran out of orange, so I'm going to make some more orange for myself. I'm trying to make similar orange as before. Pretty close, just a little bit more red. Yeah, really close. Okay. Now, one thing I never mentioned is when you're done painting, you should always clean your brushes with a lot of soap and cold water. Try to always clean them with cold water because using warm water or hot water, what it's going to do is it's going to in this section here of the brush, there is glue that ties it all together inside, and it's going to loosen this glue, and what will happen is then this will become loose, and you don't want that to happen. So I recommend always washing it with cold water. All right, we're at the point where we need to add a background now. And before I add the background, I'm going to use this orange. It's very light orange that I have here. That was very watery. I'm going to put my line. The line is pretty arbitrary unless you actually do have a backing to your subject matter. But you should make sure that it's straight. So this is, I'm painting it very lightly with just a little bit of orange. And before we add the blue, we're going to add the handle of the cup. So once you have drawn your background, you can look So I'm looking here and I can see it's not straight. This one is higher than the other one, so I need to make it a little lower. Like this. Yes. Okay. And with the orange, that's what we're going to use to draw the handle of the mug. So the first thing that I do is I indicate where it touches. It touches about here, and it touches about here. And the angle of the handle is about like this, whereas down here, so what I'm doing right now is I'm drawing the outside line of the handle. So I'm drawing the outside line on my canvas. Once I have drawn my outside, then I will draw the inside. So the angle here is about like this. And it goes pretty far away from the mug. So starting with some angles like this, I can check to see if it seems to be pretty good. And it goes about this high compared to the lip of the mug. And so once I have all the angles, I can connect them. And then I'll clean it up when I do the background. So now I have pretty much the whole handle, and I'm going to add the inside line. There. And I'm going to fill it up. Actually, I'm going to fill it up with a little bit more thickness. With the orange, we're going to worry about the light and the dark after. There. Okay. So right now, it's not perfect, very slick mug. It's just the first layer of the orange. And while it's drying, we're going to paint our background. So you can use a different brush if you have another one, or clean your brush like I'm doing right now before starting to paint the background. So once it's clean and I wipe it on the paper towel to make sure that it is, I'm going to create my background color. And to create the background color, which is blue. Oh, well, before we move on to that, is there any questions? If you have a question, raise your hand. If not, then we're going to continue. Okay, no questions. So, to create my background blue, I put a little bit of blue here on my palette. I dip my brush into the water and it becomes very watery. And with just a tint of orange, just a teeny little bit. I'm going to mix it in here and it's going to become this beautiful gray. So now this will go a long way. Because it's very watery, I can spread it very quickly. And it still will give me the idea of what I want is this nice blue will respond to my mug and will help with the vibration of the colors. Complementary colors usually vibrate. And see how I am making sure that I go all the way to the edge of the mug, even if I pick up a little bit of orange. As I do so, that's okay. Back here though, I'm gonna try to make sure that I save a little bit for the lip. Well, I didn't do so everywhere, but I can use a smaller brush and clean it up if I want to. like so. But it's not that important because we can always come back with white.
You mixed the blue with the white there?
Say again, Leslie?
Yeah. Did you make
No. What I did is I used my blue and I put a lot of water
Oh,
in
okay.
my blue, like this.
Okay. Yep.
And then I add a lot of water. I just dip my brush into the water, and then I
Okay.
added just a tinge, like
Uh-huh.
just a teeny little bit of orange, just a teeny little bit, and it gives
Okay.
this nice gray.
Thanks.
And now with this, I'm going to continue painting my background. And as I paint my background, sometimes I pick up a little bit of orange from the mug. That's okay. The background will not ultimately be a pure blue. When visiting the museum, well, right now it's hard to do, but you can always go online, look at the portrait paintings and look at the background behind the portraits. See how it's never a pure color. It's usually a combination of colors that you see in the portrait itself. The reason being that we want the center of attention, which is usually the pure colors, not to be on the background, but rather be on the subject matter. All right, and also right here, the same color goes. And I'm making sure that I'm touching, and I know it's mixing the color, the orange with the blue, but that's all right. And now it's dripping a little bit. Drip is okay. All right, so this is very, very, very thin, very, very thin. A lot thinner than what we have on the mug. And on the example that we have, look at the difference that you can see. So ultimately, it will become dark. But to start with, we start with a very light color. And the table or the surface on which the mug is will also be very light, even lighter than this. So to do this, I just add even more water to my color. And if you have the gloss medium in varnish and want to put a little bit into it, you can. That will help the color to stay put and not lift when you put another layer on top. So for the table, I'm going to make it even more blue. I mean, even more gray. So lighter color than what we have on the background. Makes it very beautiful. So I'm not doing the shadow just yet. I'm just doing a plain color, and I'm going to turn it upside down because my easel is in the way. Just easier for me to paint this way. All right, so now this is done. This is a first layer on everything. And it really isn't like a grand masterpiece right now, but we have a good idea of what we're aiming for. So we want an orange mug with a blue background, a blue-gray background. Is there any questions so far? Okay, then we're going to continue. So what is the next step? Well, I think the next step would be to work on our mug. And we want to indicate that the light comes from the right. And so therefore the right of the mug will be light, and the left of the mug will be dark, and it will cast a shadow on the left of the mug. Does anyone want to show me what you have done so far, or you're good? You can just do thumb up if you're good. All right, well, I'll continue, and we can chat a little bit later. So using a good amount of orange, I'm going to show you right here on my palette. So I'm going to get a good amount of orange. I'm going to put over here, get a good amount of blue, mix it with that orange, even a little bit more. I'm getting this nice, beautiful, well, I like this color. It's kind of like an olive green color. And with this, I'm going to indicate the dark side of my mug. So using this color, I'll put that here. A little, it's not quite wet enough. There. And a brush can be used like this, but it can also be used sideways like this. And now I'm lifting a little bit of the color. That's good. All right. And I can see on my example, I'm getting a little bit, a section that has a little bit less of the blue, but I can see in my example there is darkness down here. And also a little bit of darkness on the right hand side, but not too much. So that's going to be more orange on this area here. So once I've put this, I'm going to clean my brush completely and take some orange, add a little bit of white to this orange, and put it here. Now as I'm coming around, I'm adding even more orange, and I'm not adding any white. And I'm always using my orange. I'm not dipping into the red or the yellow. If I run out of orange, then I make more. And here I have a little bit more white in my orange. It creates some kind of white area in this section here. It's lifting, so I came back, add some more. All right. So now I need to leave that alone because it has to dry before I put some more on it, because otherwise it's going to lift. I'm cleaning my brush, and I want to put another layer up here. So I'm taking another little bit of orange and adding blue to it. And I'm going here with this. And now that I've done this, cleaning my brush completely, taking orange to put it here. And now I'm going to add a little bit of white to this orange to go even lighter up here, like so. There. So now we have this. Now we have a mug that is starting to shape up. Now that the mug is starting to shape up, although it's not finished, I'm going to work on the background so that I can let this mug dry while I'm working on the background. To do this, I'm going to use this brush. It's another flat brush, also a wide brush. This one is simply Simon's, and it's oil and acrylic. So what I want to do is I want to build my background with blue, a little bit thicker of a blue, and just a little teeny bit of orange in this blue. But I don't want to burden my background with too much of a darkness. So by adding just a little bit of orange to my blue, it's going to create almost like a teal color. So Michelle will like that. And we're going to get this kind of color. Now I don't want this to get too dark, so I'm going to just add just a little bit of white to it. And by adding just a little bit of white to this color, we're going to get this nice color. This is not the shadow, so and if we realize at the end that this is too dark, then we can always come back with more white. So when you run out of orange, just make some more. Take the time to make some more rather than just dip into your yellow or your red. Not too blue. I mean, not enough blue. I think this is just altogether too dark. As you're doing this, make sure that you go all the way to the edge of the mug. And since I'm out of orange, I'm going to make some more. Using the last of my yellow. Oh, that might be someone who's trying to attend a meeting. Let me see. Oh, I guess not. Oh. Okay. Okay. Making more orange. So be prepared. In about 5 minutes, I'll be asking you to show me where you are at. right. So now that I have more of everything, run out of white now. So when I go and paint outside in plein air, I have two different approaches. One of them is to do a little thumbnail, like a little, it's usually like 2 inches by 3 inches, very small, black and white drawing of the subject matter to see if the composition will be strong. But when I start painting on my painting, I usually draw with the brush. I don't do a drawing with my pencil on the canvas. And sometimes I just start with, don't do a study first or a thumbnail, and I start with putting some colors around on my canvas, and as I go along, then I refine my drawing and I uncover my forms that way. So here, on this, it's a little too sharp, so I'm just using brush to loosen it before it completely dries. Okay, so I have done this background over again. Now I want to do the bottom part over again. The bottom part, which is the platform or the table, I'm going to use even more white because I want it to be a nice light gray. And I'm using the same color, but more white. So now it's going to give me something like this. And I'm going to turn it upside down so that I can actually paint that section. So by adding just a teeny little bit of red, I mean not red, orange to our blue and a lot of white, it gives this beautiful gray. Some people sometimes ask me, how do you make gray? Well, this is one way to make the gray. Make sure here at the bottom that you don't leave a white space between your mug and your table. It's okay if you go a little bit on the mug. You can always repaint the mug on top after. Now, as I'm finishing this, making sure that I'm putting enough white. Look at this beautiful gray that we get. Remember, this line should be straight. All right. So this is our start. I'll show it to you.